Welcome to the free Network Configuration Manager training. So, I'll tell you the agenda for today's session. So, we'll be talking about why we need a configuration tool, configuration management tool. And then we'll see what is required to install Network Configuration Manager in your environment. And then we'll be talking about device discovery and how device templates are useful. We'll see how you can give proper credentials to get your network devices running. And then we'll be talking about configuration backup, change management, firmware vulnerability management, and lastly, we'll be talking about how you can combat with a network outage or how to face a disastrous condition in your network environment. So, why is a tool needed for configuration management? With the growing business needs, a lot of configuration changes take place on a daily basis. For example, if you have a new device added to your network, and if you have to make changes to the device, then you'll probably have to use a telnet or a putty manually log into the device and make a change. For example, sometimes the same change may have to be made to multiple devices. In that case, there won't be a way where you can push it in bulk. So in that case, you have to log into each and every device to make that particular change. And because of this, it will lead to a lot of manual errors. You might miss out certain configurations to be uploaded on certain devices. You can make a change and you may not record the change. So in that cases, it's always beneficial if you have a configuration management solution. So with a configuration management solution, you can minimize the number of times you have to fix a configuration error. Also, you can detect changes in real time. For example, if you're the main network admin and if you have technicians working under you, and if you have, you can gain complete control if you have a configuration management solution. For example, if the technician makes a change, you will be immediately notified about what the configuration change is and to which device the configuration change has been made. So, with a configuration management solution, you will also be able to stay compliant with industry standards and also your office's internal standards. So, you can automate the entire process of configuration management with Network Configuration Manager. So, what exactly does NCM do? What does it bring to the table? So, with the help of Network Configuration Manager, you can schedule a lot of configuration activities. Sometimes a lot of configuration tasks are repetitive, so you will be required to make a configuration change, or you'll be required to take a backup of a particular network device configuration multiple times. In that case, you just have to schedule it, and you can just sit back and relax because Network Configuration Manager will automatically start uh, taking care of those activities during the scheduled time. And sometimes you will have to compare a configuration with another version because the latest version may not be properly, drafted. So in that case, you might want to compare version 1 and version 2. So you can use configuration comparison for that. And then Network Configuration Manager gives you an option called configuration rollback. In certain critical devices, you may not want to apply a particular configuration change, fearing that the particular device might misbehave. So, in that case, you can give a rollback configuration option. We'll be talking about all of this in detail. I'm just giving you a gist of it. So, we have real time change detection, which helps you detect every time a configuration change is made. And with user based access, you will be able to assign certain devices to particular users, and you will be able to review and approve um, the configuration changes those users make. And we also have compliance policies which can be applied to multiple devices to stay compliant with standards like SOX, PCI, etc. And you can also remotely upgrade your format devices. So these are just important operations which can be done using NCM. So there are a lot more. You can contact our support team in case you need assistance with something particular. So what are the minimum system requirements needed for NCM to function in your environment? So you will need a 2 gigahertz dual core processor. a 4 GB RAM, 100 GB storage, PostgreSQL, and MSQL. Network Configuration Manager can be deployed on both Windows and Linux operating systems. Also, note that this particular requirement is for 50 devices only. So, if your network environment has more than 50 devices, you can refer to the screen. So, before proceeding, I'd like to tell you that we'll be sending you the presentation along with today's recording, and you can access the links by using the presentation itself. So, we'll be sending the resources in 2 or 3 days. So, these are the ports and protocols needed. As you can see, SSH, SCP, and TFTP are protocols needed for NCM to function. And on the screen, you'll be able to see the ports which are required for NCM. So device discovery. How do you discover a particular device using Network Configuration Manager? So Network Configuration Manager uses profiles, SNMP profiles V1, V2, and V3 for now. And in order to discover devices which have SNMP enabled in them, you can use NCM will have a discovery engine which will send SNMP requests to all the nearby devices. Upon receiving the request, the devices will send a sysobject ID, which will be received by the discovery engine. So once the sysobject ID is received by NCM, it will compare that particular sysobject ID with that of an existing sysobject ID. So if there is a match, then the device will be added directly to the inventory. If there is no match, you can manually add that particular device by providing the host name and other credentials required. So there are 3 ways to discover a particular device in Network Configuration Manager. One is IP address. You can provide the IP address, IP range, or import a CSV file using SNMP discovery. The second way to discover device is manual addition, where you can provide the elaborate details of what's required to add a device to your network environment. Also, the third way is importing a CSV file. So I'll talk about this in detail and help you with it. Okay, so before talking about the problems you'll face in device discovery, I'll show you how you can discover a device. So this is the UI of Network Configuration Manager. So this is the dashboard, and go to the inventory. So here you can see all the devices which are already existing in my Network Configuration Manager setup. So click on Settings, click on Discovery, choose Network Discovery option. So here you can see the SNMP way of adding a device. So you can either provide a single IP address or host name if you just want to add one device. You if you want to add multiple devices, you can provide the start IP and the end IP, and you can also provide a CSV file import. So I'll provide an IP range. I'm selecting the version v4. So I'm providing the start IP as 191.168.50.131 and the end IP as 191.168.50.150. So here you can see there are multiple credentials already created for this particular IP range to work. So if you have a created credential already, you can just associate a particular credential and then click on discover. So here you can see what is happening while the devices are being discovered. So it's a live thing, and you'll be able to see the amount or the number of devices which have been discovered in the status bar. So right now you can see that discovery has been initialized and 85% is completed. So you'll have to wait for some more time. So yeah. So you can see that a lot of devices have not been reachable. I'll tell you what to do in that case. I'll show you another example. So here I'll show you another example where here you can see that the green symbol has arrived. So it means that the device is already present in the inventory. Sometimes the device may not be reachable. So this means the SNMP uh, has not been enabled in certain devices. So in that case, you can manually add those devices. So all you have to do is click on the device. If you're sure of the credentials, you just have to click on the device and click Add to Inventory. So you'll provide the necessary details required, such as host name, vendor. If there's a device template, you just have to associate it with the particular device template and click on Add by providing other specifications needed. So once you give that, this particular device, which shows it's not reachable, will be directly added to the inventory. So you can do that in case you need, SNMP is not enabled. So I'm going to the inventory to show you the number of devices which have been added. So I already added these devices. So yeah. So this is one way of adding network configuration. Network devices to manage configurations. So another way is to click on the plus symbol you can see on the screen, and you can directly provide the necessary um, details by providing the host name, the vendor, etc. And there is another way. The third way to add devices is to import devices from a text file. So click on that. Note that a particular CSV file should have all the devices in this particular format. So here are a few examples in which your CSV file should be. So using this, you can add multiple devices, like hundreds of devices you can add at one go. So please stick to the same example. You can see this is the format, and you can just create a CSV file in that format, and you can import it. So this is about adding network configuration devices to your configuration manager. So sometimes you will face issues such as device is reachable, SNMP community is correct, but the device is not added. So like we saw earlier, this can be due to an incorrect SNMP. In that case, you have to log into the particular device using a telnet or a putty and make sure that the proper SNMP read community is given. And sometimes SNMP may not be enabled in certain devices. So please enable SNMP in devices and try again. Another reason may be the subject ID may not be mapped with any of the device templates present. So for that, you have to go to sysobject ID finder in settings and add a device. And sometimes a particular device template may not be available in NCM for a certain device type. So in that case, you can contact NCM support. Also, our support works for 5 days a week, and you can contact support in case you need a detailed step-by-step assistance in how you can manage your configurations. Now moving on to device template. So you might have wondered what a device template is, as I've used it multiple times earlier. So device template is nothing but you can there are like so many vendors in a particular network environment, right? For example, there can be Cisco devices, there can be Juniper devices. So there'll be a lot of devices which fall under a particular vendor. So in that case, a Cisco device will have configuration commands which will be different from a Juniper device vendor, right? So in such a scenario, what will you do? Will you have to like remember all the commands for the device vendors, or will you go for a template which will be suitable for all the devices which fall under a particular vendor? So this is why device template is very useful. It provides device specific configuration commands. Um, and you can use device templates for backing up configurations, uploading configurations, enabling, disabling syslog changes, and fetching hardware information, etc. So I'll show this to you in the UI. So go to configuration automation, click on device templates. So here are the CLI device templates which we have in NCM. So here you can see that there are so many different device types, and there will be devices associated under a particular device template. which means that these 50 devices will have the same configuration commands. So, for example, if you're going to add a new device, which is, which you think shares the same uh, set of commands as this particular Cisco iOS router, instead of providing the commands from scratch, you can just put or associate or map that particular device under Cisco iOS router so that you don't have to go through the hassle of typing commands and adding commands from scratch. Also, if there are minor changes in the device you're about to add, you can clone an existing device template so that you don't have to do anything from scratch. Instead, you can just add the configuration commands which are extra in that particular device you're about to add, or maybe you can modify the existing commands. So I'll show this to you. There's also an option where you can export this particular device template and make changes manually and import it back. But now I'm going to show you how to clone an existing device template. So here you can see that these are the specifications, these are the device details, and to edit the commands, you just click on next. Here you can see different commands. So for this particular operation, you can see the command which is required. So here you can edit manually. And in case you need to add an extra command, just click on plus. And if you want to delete a particular line in the configuration, you just click on the X symbol. And you can give any protocol. So there are multiple protocols. You can edit commands for all protocols. So if you don't need a particular operation under one particular device, you can click on the bin symbol. Click on next. And here you can provide the sysobject ID, series, and model, and click on save. So sometimes you may not know what a particular sysobject ID is. So in that case, you can find the sysobject ID by going to device management and sysobject ID finder. So here you can see that you can add a particular sysobject ID by providing the host name, and by providing the other details here, and by clicking on next, you can add a particular sysobject ID to be mapped with a particular device. So yeah, this is mostly about CLI device templates. We have recently added REST or REST device templates for FortiGate and Palo Alto firewall devices. So we are still, the work is under progress to add more REST API based device templates. So if you want assistance, you can ping our support team and they'll be able to assist you with REST API support for your existing devices. And I see a lot of people joining the webinar now. Don't worry, you haven't missed anything. We'll be sending you all the resources along with the recording and the presentation in 2 to 3 days. Now, moving on to backup credential. For any device to carry out with operations in Network Configuration Manager, proper credentials must be provided. So here on the screen, you can see the possible combinations of protocol which can be given for your network device. So SSH and Telnet is one such combination. NCM will establish a communication channel between itself and the device. And using that channel, NCM will send the configuration backup commands. Upon receiving NCM's request, the device will send the configuration through the same channel, which will be encrypted and stored in NCM's DB. So here's SSH SCP, where a channel will be established and SCP server will be present. So NCM will send the configuration backup commands through SSH. Upon receiving the configuration backup commands, the device will send the corresponding file using SCP protocol, which will be received by the SCP server and stored in the DB. And similar setup is used for SSH Telnet and TFTP protocol. And for SNMP TFTP alone, there will not be a communication channel. Instead, SNMP request will be sent to all the nearby configuration, all the nearby devices, and the configuration file will be transferred using TFTP, which will be received by the TFTP server, encrypted and stored in NCM's DB. So how do you provide credentials? So it's same as providing credentials using a telnet or a putty. So whatever credentials you provided using a telnet, you have to replicate or use the same credentials um, in NCM as well. So sometimes certain devices may not require a lot of credentials. So in that case, you just have to provide the few necessary fields which is required for that particular device, and NCM will consider it as the primary credential. So here's another example of providing credentials where the user just have to provide the username, password, and the prompt, and all the other fields are not necessary for a particular device. So here is how you provide credentials for a 3-com router, where the 3-com router will use only the login name, the password, and the prompt without using any of the other credentials. So once you provide the credentials, you need to check whether it's working or not. In that case, you can give the save and test option where NCM will test if that particular credential is working or not. So I'll show this to you in the UI. So go to the inventory, and on the screen, you will be able to see a key icon next to the the tick mark and the false mark. So click on the key symbol, and here you can see how you can provide the necessary protocol and the primary credentials which are required for that particular device. So sometimes credentials may change. So in that case, you can directly click on the key symbol and provide the credentials. Also, what is this profile thing here? So you can see that there's a new profile. So new profile is nothing but you can provide credentials and use that as a credential profile. So for example, in the future, if you're going to add a device which is sharing the same credentials as a previous or as an existing device, you can just associate profiles to those devices you'll be adding. So you just have to provide one credential profile. You just have to create one credential profile, and every time you add devices which share the same credentials as what's implied in the profile, you can just use the profile every time you add a new device. And here are additional credential fields if required, and these are the REST API based credentials. So you can use this whenever you are providing it based on the REST API. So yeah, once it's done, you can save and test it. So how do you know that the credential is working? So once you save and test it, this particular green symbol should appear, which means the credentials are valid. If this red symbol appears, it means the credentials are wrong and you may need to change the credentials to the right one. So sometimes credentials will be valid, but the file transfer will fail. So in that case, you have to check if the TFTP and SCP servers are in running mode. So during the backup, you'll be able to see that credentials are valid, but then file transfer does not happen. So in that case, you just have to go to server settings and set the optimal server settings. I'll just show this to you. It's easier. Like, can you see the settings? So click on that. Click on general settings and click on server settings. So here you can see that it's already in running mode, which means the file transfer has failed to other reasons. So you can just stop the service and restart it again and try saving and testing it. Moving on to configuration backup. Configuration backups are very important because in case something fails, you can still have the backup version. So using Network Configuration Manager, you can backup configurations in 3 ways. One is instant backup, one is real-time change detection, and the other one is scheduled backup. So for instant backup, I'll show how it works. So click on the devices you need to take a backup of. Click on the 3 dot icon here and give the backup option. So once you do that, you'll be able to see that configuration backup will be triggered. So whatever the latest version is, that particular version will be retained and backup will be provided. So another method, the second method of backing up device is real-time change detection. So real-time change detection is very useful if a network admin does not want to be present in the physical, environment or your data center. So, for example, if you're not present and if you still want to monitor what is happening in your network, you can enable real-time change detection in your network devices. Once you enable real-time change detection, if any user logs into that particular device, makes a change and logs out of the device, you will be able to, get a notification, or the change will be detected in real time. So yeah, so let's say a user logs into the device and logs out of the device. So NCM will consider that this particular user may have made a change. So it'll immediately take a backup of that particular configuration after the user logs out. It'll compare the latest version with that of an existing version. So all this happens because of syslog messages which gets triggered. So once NCM receives the syslog messages, it will compare the configuration and it will check if any change has been made by that particular user. So if a change is made, then this version will be stored in the DB as the latest version. If a change is not made, that particular configuration will be discarded. So here you can see that you can see the device. So just click on it, click on the three dot icon and give enable change detection. Provide the necessary details and click on update. So, if you want to disable it, you just have to click on the disable option. For example, you don't want any changes to be uh, captured, you're just testing it. So, in that case, you just have to give the disable option. So, once you enable change detection, everything will be recorded for that particular device alone. So the third one we saw, sorry. So during enable change detection, you might encounter a message which says we don't support enable change detection for this particular device, which means NCM does not support syslog for that particular model. So you have to enable syslog by connecting to the device and by executing the enable syslog commands manually using a telnet or putty. If you find it tedious, you can contact NCM support and we'll be able to enable syslog in such devices. Sometimes the change detection will be enabled, but change won't be detected. So all you have to do is go to the server settings and see if the ports are properly configured and if the server setting is in running mode. So this is the second way. So the third way is to schedule configuration backup. So for configurations or for devices which need routine backups, you can use this method. So I'll show this to you in the UI. Click on config automation, click on schedule. So you need a new schedule for a particular device for configuration backup. Click on plus symbol and you can provide a schedule name as backup 123 and configuration backup is the schedule type. You also have scheduling for other operations. We'll be seeing this in the second part. For now, you can click on configuration backup and you can associate devices. So click on devices, click on the particular device model and choose the arrow here. So in case you want to add device groups, you can click on the drop down and add devices in bulk. So you can receive email about the particular operation, and for that you just have to provide your email address and the subject you want to receive to be notified about this particular activity. So you can also have additional notifications in case there is a backup failure during the schedule. You can check this box, and if you want to exclude configuration difference, you can check this box. And if you want to be notified whenever a change is made before the schedule happens, you can check this box. Here you can provide the time of schedule. So for example, if you want it to be a weekly schedule, you just have to provide the date and the day and the time of scheduling. So at that particular time, NCM will start backing up configurations immediately and you will receive a notification to your mailbox. So that's all about configuration backup. Now we have schedule failure. So sometimes a schedule may not run as desired. So in that case, you have to check if the credentials are properly configured. So if the proper credentials are given, then you don't have to worry, it'll work. And sometimes the credentials may be invalid. So just make sure you give the proper credentials and try again. You can also check if the server settings are proper, and you can also go and edit the timeout value by going to the command sections in the device template like we saw earlier. So you can increase the timeout in case a large configuration file is to be scheduled. And sometimes certain backup commands may not be supported. So go to the device template like I showed you earlier and add the necessary commands. You can also call us or request support from our team. Moving on to change management. Change management is one of the most important features in Network Configuration Manager, which helps you understand what kind of configuration changes are made, who is making configuration changes, and when a configuration change is being made. You can also see the historical change trend in a particular device, like when the last change was made, what sort of change was made, etc. And then you can also view the number of compare to configurations and view the number of lines which have been changed, the number of lines which have been deleted, and the number of lines which have been added. So go to the inventory for this. So let's say you want to check what kind of changes are made to Cisco iOS router. Click on that particular device. It will take you to this page, and here you can see the device details and the device information. And here you can see the configuration changes. You can see when the last configuration change was made and to which version and who changed it and what type of configuration change was made, whether it was a running configuration change or a startup configuration change, and whether it's an authorized or an unauthorized change. So clicking on it, you will be able to get a deeper insight on what kind of changes were made, like what exactly the change was. Like this was the particular line which has been deleted, and this is the change which has been recorded by Network Configuration Manager. So this is how you can see the changes made to the configuration. Another important feature is comparing configurations. So whether you want to compare two different versions in the same device, or if you want to compare configurations of totally different devices, you can use compare configuration options. So this will give you exact details on what kind of change was made. So click on inventory. So you can compare any two devices and any two configurations. Click on the plus minus symbol you can see here. So this will take you to the diff view. So I'm going to compare two configurations which belong to the same device. Mm, I'm so sorry, I'm facing an internet issue. Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that. Click on config diff view and you can select a device. I'm choosing the startup option, and okay, there's no version under it. So yeah, okay, yeah. So click on a particular version and click on the same device if you want to compare two different configurations which belong to the same device. And click on startup or running or anything you want to check. And here you can see that I'm able to see the number of lines which have been added. So on the left hand side, this is the latest, the 69 version, and this is the 60 version. So here you can see on the latest version, the lines added in green are, are new lines, and this particular line has been modified from destination 192.168.56.1 to destination 2.2.2.100. And these two lines have been deleted from the configuration. So this provides the difference only. You can also view all the lines in the configurations by clicking on all lines option. So this is how you can check what kind of configuration difference has been made. Moving on to firmware vulnerability management. This is a recent feature which was developed by Network Configuration Manager, and you can view all the vulnerabilities in your network device using this particular feature. You can see the CVE details and take the remediation measures accordingly. So click on firmware vulnerabilities. Here you can see. So all the data we receive about vulnerabilities is directly fetched from NIST. And here you can see under all vulnerabilities, you will be able to see the number of devices which are vulnerable under particular CVE ID. So here you can drill down and see the number of devices which have this particular vulnerability. And you can click on it and see what the view the details of that particular vulnerability. So here you can see the base score and how critical that particular vulnerability is, and the status, whether a patch is available or not, and number of devices which have been affected. Here you can see that. So this is the view which helps you view according to the CVE ID. But if you want to see it device wise, click on exposed devices. So these are the devices which are vulnerable. And by drilling down, you'll be able to see how many vulnerabilities are present in this particular device. And you can also view the version wise distribution. For example, how many Cisco devices are vulnerable. So here you can see that these are the Cisco devices which are vulnerable, and these are the CVE IDs. So yeah, go under all vulnerabilities, click on a particular CVE ID to see what that particular vulnerability is about under summary. And here you can see the reference URL, which will provide you with necessary ways to fix that particular vulnerability. And so under CVE 2017.122.40, you can see that these are the affected devices. Once you take action, you can edit the status to resolved or resolution planned or not applicable. So depending on the status, you can update it. Also, there's an option where you can sync vulnerability database. So I told you earlier that we fetch the data from NIST. So usually it happens uh, at 2 a.m. in the night. But for this particular device, we've set it at 12 o'clock in the night. So this was the last successful update. So if you want to change the schedule time at which the data is being fetched, you can change the time here. And you can see if the particular DB sync has been a success or a failure. So if you want to immediately fetch the data from NIST and see how many devices are vulnerable, click on update now. Or you can also manually import by providing a file. So yeah, this we saw earlier. Now moving on to the last phase in today's training. So yeah, there are disasters which are inevitable, right? So these disasters will cause performance degradation on a longer run. Sometimes there will be a sudden network outage, which will halt all your impending activities, or you may not have to, you may have to wait until the resolved issue is resolved. And sometimes there'll be a security breach which can put your network at disaster. So, what can you do in such a situation? How to be prepared? So, these are few preparation methods on how you can prevent a particular network outage, or certain ways to actually you know do some damage control when something inevitable happens. So first one is baseline configuration. So what's a baseline configuration? Baseline configuration is the configuration which has been tried and tested multiple times and which has proved to be solid time and again. So baseline configuration is the most stable version among all the other configuration versions. So let's say you have configuration versions from 1 to 100 and you know that version number 95 is the proper stable version. You can name it as the baseline version so that whenever a disaster happens, whenever a network outage happens and you lose all your files and you have to upload a particular version, you don't have to worry about which version is stable or strong enough. So you can directly click on the option called baseline and upload it. So yeah, I'll show this to you. Go to the inventory. So let's say you want to name this particular device as the stable version. Click on the three dot icon and click on label configuration option. So you can provide the label as the baseline version and you can click on save. So during a disaster, you can upload a particular version which is a baseline. So just click on upload configuration option. And you can see that you're going to upload this version. So here you can see that the label based upload has been triggered. So sometimes upload may not be possible. So in that case, you have to check the credential protocol. Uh, Telnet and SSH does not support an upload. So make sure that the protocol is set to SCP or TFTP while uploading a particular configuration. Also, sometimes device vendor supports the particular SCP or TFTP, but in same device template does not have upload commands for that device. So you just have to go to device templates and edit or add the new commands, or you can contact NCM support. So yeah, startup and running configuration sync. It's very important because let's say startup version is the version which appears when you reboot your system, and running version is the version you know test by improving or making changes in the configuration. So let's say there's a bug in your particular configuration and you're fixing it in the running version. If you fail to sync the startup and running configuration, then this particular changes will be lost. These particular changes will be lost. So in that case, you have to make sure that the startup and running configuration are in sync. You don't have to manually check all that. I'll just show this to you in the UI. So if a startup and running configuration are not in sync, you will be able to see it in the inventory itself. So here you can see that this particular device is in sync with its startup configuration, but then these devices are not in sync. So here you can see that conflict has been detected. So in that case, click on that particular device where a conflict has been detected and click on the three dot icon and give sync configuration option. Once you do that, configuration operation will be synced successfully. So I see a few attendees joining now. Like I told earlier, you don't have to worry. We'll be sending the recording and the presentation. So while uploading, you might encounter an error which says upload has failed. So just check the TFTP and SCP servers if they are in running mode and try again. And then there will be another error which says that change happens, but startup running conflict is not detected by NCM. So it can be because you might have disabled real-time change detection. So for conflict to be detected immediately, you have to ensure that you have enabled the real-time change detection. So if this log is not supported, the conflict will be detected after the next successful schedule backup. So change notification and rollback. So this is a very useful feature. For example, if there are technicians working under you and if you want to get the details on certain changes made to devices, you can configure change notifications. And if you don't want any changes to be applied to certain devices, you can give the rollback option. So while applying changes in bulk, NCM will exclude certain devices from being considered for that particular change testing. So I'll show how, sorry, so I'll show how change notifications work. Click on config automation and click on change notifications. So here we have existing notifications configured. So to add a new notification, click on the plus symbol and here provide a notification name, such as I'm providing it as email notification 111. And you can provide a description. I'm just providing it as test. And on which particular configuration um, type do you want it? Whether a startup or running configuration is changed or both. You can click that particular option, change type, and you can choose whether you want to give an email notification. For email notification, you will be receiving a change notification to your email ID. Provide your email ID here in this field. You can provide the subject, the message, and you can choose the variables on what you want the change notification to have. And there is an option called SNMP trap. You can provide the host name, IP address, destination port, and community. So you'll receive in the form of traps. And here you can see syslog notifications where you'll be receiving syslog messages once you provide the host name or IP address. And you can also get it in the form of tickets within NCM itself. The rollback, if it's given, you can either roll back to a previous version or version label baseline. So that you can do if you don't want the changes to be applied. So click on next and associate the devices to the particular change notification to be received. So whatever change is made to this particular device Cisco group, I want a change notification. So I'm providing that particular group and I'm also adding one more backup failure group. You can also individually select devices by clicking on the necessary devices and adding it to the bar. Click on save. So from once you click on save, the change notifications will be received by you in one of the means you specified. So here is export configurations. So let's say there is a sudden network outage and you don't know you lost all your configuration files. You don't have to worry if you have already exported configurations. So here you can do that by using export configuration option. Click on settings, global settings, and click on export configuration. So export configuration will allow you to export the entire configuration repository present in your NCM. So you can have daily, weekly, monthly configuration. With the daily, you just have to provide the time at which you want to export configuration. If it's monthly, you can provide that as well, and you can add devices or configurations for which you want this particular daily exporting to your local DB. So you can choose the destination for that and choose to receive the notifications as well. Now click on save and in the schedule time, the configurations will be exported in bulk. And if you give on export configurations now, whatever the current state is with the configurations in your network environment, it will take place. So that's all about network configuration manager's first part training. We'll be talking about the rest of the activities in the second part. Also, if you are a network configuration manager user and if you have decent experience with NCM, you can maybe review NCM, provide a review and win a $25 worth gift card. So you can access the link on the screen and you can write a honest review and get a gift card. So part two will be on June 8th. And on June 8th, we'll be talking about configuration scheduling, CLI configlets, how you can be compliant with standards like PCI, SOCs, etc. And we'll see how you can assign certain technicians to take care of certain devices and monitor what they are doing in your network environment. And we'll be talking about notifications, alerts, and reports. So let's keep in touch. So ncm-support at manageengine.com is our address for contacting our support team. And if you want to view or watch videos, you can go to our YouTube channel and you can participate in our forums to discuss the configuration operations. Thank you. Let's meet again, same time. And thanks for your patience. So, before you leave, I'd like to ask you a question. So, please don't leave. I'd want to know if you would like a personalized demo of your product. Please choose the poll option. Can you see the poll option? So if you want a personalized demo, you can schedule a configuration. Sorry, you can schedule a demo with our support team, and you can directly talk to him, ask questions, ask doubts if you want, and you can get your doubts clarified. So once you opt for the yes option, we'll send you a mail, and you can respond to the mail, and you can decide when you will be able to attend that particular session. So you can keep it short. You can just ask important questions and clarify necessary doubts. Please vote yes or no in the poll panel. So I have one more question for you. So please rate the presentation. Did you like the presentation? Please give me a rating. It'll be very useful for us so that we'll be able to know how we perform today. And you've been a wonderful audience. We received a few questions and we were able to answer it. And overall, it was very nice having you all here. All right. So I guess you have voted. So this is the last poll. How would you rate the presenter? Was my audio clear? And if you're happy with my presentation, please provide a rating. Kindly, it will be very helpful if all of you vote so that we'll understand how we fared today. All right, guys, thanks for voting. I'm extremely happy with how you guys, uh, you know, for getting a chance to present this today, and we'll be meeting each other on the next Tuesday and same time. Please be there. So the next Tuesday, my colleague Arjun will be presenting the session. And thanks a lot for your patience. And for those who have opted for demo, you will receive a mail soon. So kindly respond to the email in case you want to schedule a meeting with our support team where you can ask your doubts. And it'll be a one-on-one session. Thanks a lot again, and you've been wonderful. Thanks a lot. Have a good day. I'm gonna end the session.